Sylvia, I guess. I was
Oh, well,
looking at.
I didn't see the other Charles. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just looking at looking for the videos for this week's meetings, and I was just curious that they don't seem to have appeared yet. I was curious what the process is to get those uploaded. Is that a big deal? I mean, is there a lot of effort involved in that?
Not
That can't.
not too much effort. We've got to convert them to YouTube because of the size. So they
Oh,
should
okay.
be up by latter part of the week. Our website won't manage it, so we had to create a YouTube channel to upload them into.
Right. So there's sort of post processing that has to go on before you get them up there. Okay.
Yes. But we should have them up by tomorrow afternoon.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Charles Young.
As a follow-up to our last meeting, there were at least 5 items that we talked about adjusting. And I think you may have several more, Mr. Chairman, that I see have not yet been updated in OpenGov. And I can enumerate what they are if you want, but I'm just wondering, what is the plan and timing for updating those items?
Should be pretty instant. I'll let Susanna answer that question.
I've updated everything that I was able to update in OpenGov. Can you give me an example?
Yes, under admin, line 5306 for the attorney. That was originally 70,000. We talked about moving it back to 50,000.
I thought I did that one. Let me just double check to make sure I'm not hallucinating that I did it.
Well, and let me make sure I'm looking at the right version of OpenGov too, in case I'm looking at an older version of the budget.
Yeah, make sure you're looking at the bronze budget, not the silver budget.
Yes, it's down to 50,000.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I was looking at the bronze budget. Or I mean at the silver budget.
Yeah, that's
Right, yeah.
Okay, then I will double check those other items, and if they haven't been adjusted, I'll send you a note with what they are, Suzanne, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. And the only ones I show that need to still be adjusted are in admin, the IT management services.
Yeah, that was
I
one of
believe
them.
we're still waiting on a contract for that, and so we don't have a number yet. And then the other one was the software acquisitions. I believe we were supposed to revisit that. But I think everything else should be adjusted.
Actually, I see one that wasn't that we talked about. 5835 utilities.
Is that revenue?
No, that's under
Or,
expenses.
oh, utilities in the administration?
Yes, I thought we talked about moving that back down to 80,000.
I don't have that written down, but maybe I missed it. I was writing furiously during the whole thing.
Okay,
Okay,
Michael,
so
do you
did
have
we
that
decide
note?
to move that?
Excuse me, Charles.
Michael, do you have a note on that? I had that in my notes.
I'm sorry, I was looking at something else. On which one was utilities?
Yeah, 5834 or 35, I mean.
I have it up on the screen right now.
What was the account code?
5835.
Yes.
So I believe originally we had 92,000 proposed in that line item, and because I see a 15% reduction right now here. Maybe maybe I missed that one too. Was it supposed to go down to 50?
No, and I'm looking at it and
I don't have the note, Charles.
okay. Oh, maybe we'll
Wait,
want
I
to
think
come.
I think I hear Regine trying to say something.
Let me show her how to unmute herself again.
Yeah, my note was to move it back to 80 from the 92.
Right.
Hey folks, this is Rudy. If you look at your June 18th minute notes, you will see what the adjustments were on number 5.
Thank you, Rudy. that it, Charles?
Sorry, what did you say, Michael?
Was there anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Regine? Nope, we still can't hear her, and that's because I got her a new microphone today. I'm gonna have her type it in the chat.
Looking good, John.
Okay, sorry. She's going to put it in the chat.
Do we have any other citizen comments?
Michael, I have one more.
Charles?
Again, it just has to do with something that was talked about long ago about this notion of basically starting from zero in terms of building a budget from the ground up. And it just came to mind, particularly because of last discussion we had where we were talking about that 25% reduction as a sort of baseline expectation and working from there. And I was just wondering at the possibility of putting together, on that idea of the zero budget, building from ground up, coming up with something, call it the paper mache, plan, or maybe the bamboo plan. We're talking about a bare bones budget. I'm talking, the very basic, the patient is just breathing, surviving. That's it. I guess I'm thinking of something we can fall back to if our original expectation is not panning out and we realize that we have a much more serious situation at hand, that we would have a potential fallback plan, or we would have a basis for understanding what the city requires to keep afloat, minus anything that we would consider to be extra. For what it's worth, that's all I want to say. I can't really expand upon that anymore, but I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Anyone else? All right, on to the liaison report. Wanda?
So we had the council had our meeting on Tuesday. Unfortunately, we did not get to the audit section. We had to delay that to the next meeting. We had marketing firms. We had 3 marketing firms do presentations, really fabulous presentation. And we ended up choosing Ampersand and Canalys. And so you should be hearing more about them as the CED committee starts working with them. So really excited about them. We also had a long discussion about hot funds and the farmers market regarding whether or not they were living up to their contract for advertising responsibilities. And that is something I think will get closer scrutiny in the next coming year. So as we look at what their contract entails and are they advertising appropriately for the funds that we are giving. So, and those were the highlights.
Great. Any questions for Wanda? I think, Charles, before we jumped into this, into the agenda item, and given our conversation in the meeting last week, we went through those first 2 budgets. We realized how much of the bandwidth got chewed up, and the conversation then kind of spun into, well, how do we go from here, knowing that that gap is really narrowed down? And then there was some conversation about maybe going back and re-examining that. So I'm wondering, before we go into these 2 items, whether item 7 just says review, discuss, and possible action on the proposed budget, whether we want to have any other conversation about how we move forward through the rest of these. I think one of the comments was we need to go back, as we said, because we have a different mindset and a little frame of mind, we didn't realize how tight that was going to be at the end, that perhaps maybe some of those needed a second look. And as we said, it's easier for council to add things later than to try and take them away now. And we talked about using the definition of essential versus non-essential. So as we go through these, if there's conversation, the question then begs to be asked, is it an essential expense or is it not? If it's not, do we fund it? If it is, utilities, general liability, things like that, those kind of things needed to be funded. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not sure how you guys want. What I don't want to do is have us get to the end and then go, well, we need to start, and then we're running out of time. Yeah. That conversation here, or just start through these items. Thoughts?
I have a thought.
Okay, Wanda, then Terry.
So one thing is that, we really won't have a really good idea until August sales tax, till we get August sales tax numbers, which will be June sales tax numbers. That will give us, to me, the best indication of what our year is going to be about. All right, but at that point, we should have a budget already developed. So we're kind of a little, that's really puts us in a difficult position. Yeah. But I am thinking maybe what we do is we have a side list of items that if we had to go in and cut, or do different things, we had this list of items that we could say, okay, this is a $25,000 item, this is a $50,000 item that we keep on the side, and it's almost like it's not the bronze budget, but it's like maybe it's the red budget. I don't know what it is, but it's, and it might have stuff like things like we charge, or maybe staff pays part of their health insurance cost. Maybe, we increase, some services, that type of thing. But we have this list that we really don't want to touch, but it's there and we can draw it in if we have to. So kind of my thoughts.
Terry?
Yeah, well, I like Councilwoman Wanda's idea. I think that we should have that and have the ability to go back and maybe as we plan our agenda, that we keep that in mind, that we may have an extra day or whatever to do those adjustments as we get closer to knowing, as we get through the rest of it in particular. Now, I didn't prepare to go back through the first two, even though I had some items in there. So I would prefer not to do that tonight just because I'm not prepared for it. I did prepare.
It's not on the agenda, so we wouldn't be able to tonight.
Okay. But that what is quote's a good one, and they're definitely a number, and we ought to think about it, and maybe how would we do we need to feed them in? We need to feed them into the chairman, I guess. One, is that what you're thinking? Like our ideas on this side list items? You mentioned a couple of good ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just need a listing kind of, and there's and those won't be popular ideas. None of them will be popular, but they're there if we need them. And come August, we may need them. I mean, we may find like, whew, okay, we dodged a bullet, but it's better to be a little more prepared, I think, so.
So I think what you're proposing is we would say, okay, look, we're going to zero that out for now, but we're going to put that on the waiting list. I think that, and park it over there and just say, okay, let's get to the end and maybe we add some of these back. Is that what you're saying?
Hello?
Well, it's almost like it's the opposite way. It's almost like saying, okay, what if we, I'm just going to talk about the health insurance contribution from our staff. That would be unpopular. It's not something we want to do, but it would be nice to know, okay, if we did that, what amount is that? Let's say it's 25,000. So we can put that in a little bucket over here on the side. And if we come back in August and say, man, we got to reduce by another, we got to find $100,000 or $200,000 in this budget, then we have this bucket to go to. Okay, we can pick this, this, and that. That makes sense? It's things like increasing our water rates, increasing our garbage pickup, or waste, those types of things.
Well, those things are in front of us.
Yeah.
That was the last meeting, so we'd have to rebudget. We'd have to pop that back onto a future agenda to go back into that, so folks know we're going to do that. I think they're all great ideas. We'll just need to kind of put those on the agenda so we can get back to those.
Hello, Mr. Chairman?
Alfonso, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't attend last meeting. I was a little sick, but I was now working a lot with the budget. For me, I like to work with a binder. So we don't have a binder, but I try to have from each committee their budget or the proposed budget from the staff. So in finance, last time, they were looking some revenue projections, general fund, administration, municipal court, police, and crime. And we assume that today we will study the HUD funds, general government, and perhaps next week we'll go with public works, drainage, and green tax. And the following July 9 will be the utilities, street, and projects. But at this moment from the staff, I was taking from the website all the budgets, and I made one similar to my binder. And when I was doing that, I found that it's very good how the staff was doing the budget. And I was real surprised, because when I saw the police and when I saw public works, they went real down. And that gave it to me a very good idea, because, for example, with the police, the copies that I saw, they were so high, the number. But when I was looking, for me, the police was only $1,068,000 for the public safety. And in the crime, they increased a little, $100-something thousand. And I hear that from revenues, if we use the 75%, we will have only $3.6 million. But looking at administration, municipal court, public works, general government, my big total was $2.9 million. So we have extra almost $600,000. When I was looking utilities from the staff, we will have revenues from 1.1 and expenditures from 1.5. So we will have, as a subsidy, $342,000 plus $200,000 for infrastructure. So if at this moment I will do the budget, I will have, with subsidies and with all of that departments, over $100,000 extra. So if later we will go with the streets, general, drainage, and the green, and streets, green, crime, and drainage, in all of them, I have reserves. But when I was looking with how we start the 1920, and later they put bronze, silver, etc., was a good idea. But again, looking 25% as a reduction of the budget, it can be risky. So in that way, with 75%, we have money. But I don't believe that will be 75. I don't want to be pessimistic, but if I will do budget, I will do with more reductions. So we can wait until August. But I don't believe that at this moment we need to start creating in people some illusions that not necessarily we need to go silver. We can go gold, because I don't believe we need to continue with the base bronze and the idea, some of that silver. But we need to be very, very careful. And I hope that if everybody is looking at this moment, all the budgets, as I was watching, you will think different. So this is what I try to say. Did you catch, Michael?
I did.
Yeah, so the staff make incredible job because Public Works from over $800,000, they went to 380 or 347. So that was good. Police 1.2 and they went to $1 million was very good. Administration in the same way. So I think the staff was doing good their job. And for us, before we start argue and say this or say that, we have to have all the budgets in one paper, and the people that have in the old way, they can have their binder and they can see that. I have my binder at this moment from this 2020-21. So
Yeah.
this is my suggestion.
Alfonso, did you look at other funds like we are now there, like Public Works salaries are now put into the street fund and the drainage fund? It's being
Yes.
divided up somewhere in there, and so that's part of that reduction that you might be seeing.
No, the reduction was the elimination. In Public Works, we eliminate five positions.
Elimination.
So it
Yeah.
was over 50% of that. So that was a lot of money. So, and because some of them, they have a lot of benefits. So a lot of money. So this is why in Public Works, that if you are looking reduction of over $500,000 is a lot, and police $200,000 is a lot. So they were doing their job, and I think that the staff, they can provide at this moment that papers, and everybody will be more simple because I have a lot of time and I used to do this a lot. For me, it's easy, but not necessary for everybody. It's no ego. I try to say that perhaps will be good if everybody has that as a hard copy, small, try to read with a coffee and talking, etc. And after that, we can discuss, because at this moment, I am looking that as a macro. And this budget, if we are looking $6 million budget, 25% is $1.5 million that we don't have as a reduction. So we cannot start talking about the coffee or printing or that. We have to look this real macro and go into the bonds. This is how I was looking that one.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm not privy to all that information, so I don't know. All I know is what we've covered so far. How do people want to proceed?
Mr. Chair?
Jerry?
Yeah, just it would be nice if Alfonso could provide his master spreadsheet, I'll call it, to staff to vet it, to make sure everything's there. And if the work's done, it would be really helpful to have that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Let me see if I can paraphrase, Alfonso. Essentially what you're saying, if we go with the bronze budget, we're good?
Then I try to say, no, we need to do some analysis. In some of them, they are very, very, we need to analyze deeper, Michael. Some of them is between bronze and silver, because silver, bronze, we will have problems with the budget. We have to analyze just a little and try to make some adjustments. So will be between these two. But I know that Sylvia is real busy. But Suzanne, the new lady, with the direction of Sylvia and the experience of Regine, they can give it to us, that papers. And in that way, Terry, believe me, will be more easy for us, Jeff.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Charles?
if I may.
Of course.
I like Wanda's idea of having these things that are off to the side of the budget that we take out and can put back in depending on revenues. I think to do that, and I think this also goes to what Alfonso was saying, We need to have a clear identification of what we consider essential, of what has to be in the budget. Which I would think is an amount that is less than 25% of revenues. And I'm not sure, at least in my mind, I'm not sure we have a very clear definition of what we think is essential.
Well, a good example is the second item tonight is a contingency fund. Is that essential?
Right. I would argue it's not, but it's
not like we don't have any money. So that would be a non-essential expenditure. It's
right.
an appropriate one in normal times, but it's not essential. Tuition reimbursement, not essential.
Right.
Do we just say, okay, let's put, the only thing I would want to just get clarity with Wanda on is, and like we talked about last week, it's easier to add these in than it is to take them out. So my feeling is, and just the thought is, we just say, okay, look, we like the contingency idea or the insurance issue. So we're going to put that or we say, we don't want to do away with the contingency. We might want to, let's zero that out and put that on the list to move back at some point. But I think what you're saying is leave it in there and put it on the list to take it out later.
No.
Yeah.
No, actually,
these are really unpopular things.
Well, we're going to get this long list, and we're going to get to the very end, and then there's going to be this long item by item, up and down, which is maybe the way we do that. Sylvia?
I was going to say we could do a couple of things. We could do sort of a parking lot that is going to end up with this, really long list, or we have the ability to duplicate the budget and then give you a model immediately after a meeting or as the meeting's going. Right now in OpenGov, we have the bronze budget and we have the silver budget. And primarily the difference is there's additional staffing costs in the silver budget. But we could even create a third, which is a more austere than just a bronze, which is a pewter or whatever level you want us to create. And then we can, to the point of zeroing out at that point. And so at the end, we have which of the options we want to pick, and you have the ability to see it pretty clearly.
Part of the issue is we're running out of time, folks. And if we hit the pause button here and say, okay, we want to go back and do whatever along with normal operations, I don't think we're going to be able to start over in a week and pick up the pace and get to where we need to be in the cycle of trying to meet that deadline. That would be my only concern with that. I hear what you're saying, but that's something to think about, is the timing.
Can I jump in for a second?
July, and we've got to have a budget done by August 12th is when the mayor files her budget. So that would really, we're talking about the end of July, 4 weeks.
John Belanca.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Alfonso for his efforts in getting that data together. I'd like to see it, so I'm with Wanda and whoever else recommended sharing that with the city and the members. But I have I guess a couple questions. We do currently have a reserve. I'm not sure I know exactly what that reserve is, but we do have one. And I don't mind going negative on this year's budget. Don't mind at all. So I'd like to kind of know where the members of this committee stand on how much of a deficit are they willing to accept, right? And if it just eats into the deficit a little bit, or even a year's worth, 10% worth or some such percentage, then that may be the easiest solution, to go somewhere between silver and bronze. Maybe silver is the answer. Maybe I don't know, but I'm willing to do deficit, knowing that a year from now we're going to be in a lot better shape, right? I just have to believe that. And if you don't believe that, then we ought to. I don't know what we ought to do. We ought to do something different. But I just, okay. So does anybody care if we have a deficit or not? Can I just ask that question?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, John. I mean, if the reserve isn't to help us through a once in a century pandemic, then what is it for?
Thank you.
I think it goes without saying that we're going to be negative.
Well, maybe. Let's look at Alfonso's numbers and see, maybe that's not true. Maybe bronze may be adding to the reserve, right? So maybe we should have gone silver. Or maybe we should go bronze and some programs as opposed to personnel. I don't know, but these are things we could still talk about.
Well, that's the subjectivity of it. When we say programs or those, that then requires, okay, then we have to march through all of those programs and decide what stays and goes.
Yeah, but what we did is just eliminate anything that wasn't essential. And I'm thinking, God, that's everything, right? Not everything. That's a lot that we eliminated.
Mr. Chairman?
Alfonso?
Yeah, I can send, I can email all the data that I have, and I have some abstract of that. And I can send to the members of the committee and also to Sylvia. So in that way, they will have a better idea. But Wanda, when you asked me about bronze and silver and why was too much, was the 5 people. So when you eliminate that 5 people, and when you eliminate the JOD program or the employees that they used to come to help, that was $38,000. You are in the bronze. So when they go to the silver, they have to add that $38,000 from that people and the additional 2 technicians. So part of the money, the salary of 2 technicians. Now, what happened? If you let that in bronze, 3 employees, they cannot do the job of public works. So that is realistic. Or if we will say 6 employees, that is unrealistic because it's utilities, it's environmental, it's streets. So you have to hire people. Last night we discussed that. And last night when we were discussing that, it's not only 2 technicians. According with the committee of public works, they say the guy that he's doing the inspections of the streets no needs to be 1 technician with 1 license. Needs to be somebody that he knows construction.
Okay,
So,
Alfonso.
okay.
Hold on. We're getting into the public works budget. Let's get back to what the agenda items are here. I don't know.
But that is coming.
I don't know what.
Michael, but that is coming to this. At this moment, you will say you approve 2 technicians or you don't approve 2 technicians. And 2 technicians more, they cannot do the job, and that requests the department. So I have to be clear with that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Back to John's question. Is there anybody that's adverse to spending reserves? I mean, let's just talk about it. And so we don't, Terry?
Yeah, in regard to reserves, we have some kind of extraordinary expenses, and they're going to come before budget and finance, and a lot of them have to do with business promotion and marketing, etc. So I was thinking those kind of expenses are definitely appropriate for reserves because they're one-time expenses. They're going to happen and they'll stop. That's my thought.
I would agree with that.
Nobody's, no. Okay.
No.
There's the question, John. Not like anybody has a problem with spending reserves.
I have a problem.
One. Sylvia? Hang on, Charles. Sylvia?
So I wanted to point on the screen that I'm sharing, I hope everybody can see it, over on the left-hand side. This is the bronze budget with pretty much everything that we have entered. We're still missing equipment repair and replacement, and we are still missing some projects. And it looks like we have a surplus of 1.3. Now, that's been the discussion among everybody on how much can we move back. And that surplus is really because we projected certain things toward the end of this year that we weren't going to spend and that we're never going to come back. That's why you see that number the way it is. And that's why you hear folks saying, hey, but taxes are coming in. We need to bring people back. What that doesn't account for is putting back what we didn't transfer this year, which, you know, we have to make the decision. We chose not to transfer. We're going to put it back. So that number's got to get taken out of there. And also any additional projects, and then also equipment repair and replacement. So you'll see that number whittle down, and there will be some cushion. My fear from just a planning perspective is, yes, the budget has been constricted. Yes, our reserve amount will be constricted to a certain amount. So there'll be a little bit of cushion there, but we did only reduce revenues by 25%. And we're seeing what's happening outside. I think probably it's going to be closer to 30 or 35%, but you know, without making those assumptions in the budget right now, I think heading into the bronze, into essential, creating this parking lot of options, which are fees, which really are revenues. And in every budget I've ever done, we always work with revenues first, and revenues is fees and everything else. And also those employee contributions, and also those, you know, nice things that we have in the budget that may not necessarily be essential. We don't really have a whole lot of those options here. We do have, P&E did talk about solid waste fee. And even if we went to a full fee, that's $76,000. And that would raise people's fee about $22 a month, let's say. That only raises $76,000, but it's $76,000. And if we go back to employee contributions on insurance and those kinds of things, that's another 25 to 50,000, depending on how deep that cut is. So there's a whole litany of things within that, but we are running out of time. The mayor does have to file the budget within a certain period. I'm happy to create a parking lot. We'll do that, and we'll do a model, and we'll send it immediately to the committee, or better yet, while we're talking, Susanna can be modeling and show that, but we'll do whatever the committee would like us to do. I would just please urge on the side of conservative.
Okay, hold on before we move forward. Okay, Charles?
Yes, I'm going to go back to, well, I hear what Wanda was saying, and you know, in terms of having these items that we could, the parking lot, I guess that Silver refers to. I don't think that's a good idea, because I can relate to what Michael said about the fact that, you know, if we should need to dip into that, you know, that bag, then it's going to be opening up a can of worms on how to put various items in that bag in priority. So I'm going to relate to something that Alfonso said in a previous meeting about a more granularity in terms of these various programs, you know, bronze, gold, silver, bamboo. I mean, I'm frustrated. I'm really frustrated, because I don't know where. I thought Budget and Finance Committee was determining this budget, but somehow we have one. We have this bronze budget, and I don't know where the hell it came from. I honestly don't know where it came from. I thought that was our job. And, you know, what some committee says outside of the Budget and Finance Committee, that's well and good, but that has to be presented to us in detail, because I don't know, in terms of us starting to pay for our solid refuse deal, you know, what's that all about? You know, I mean, you know, we were getting subsidized by the city, and it sounds like it's turning around, and we're going to subsidize the city in return in order to maintain staff, possibly. I don't know. I'm all mixed up in this process. I'm the new guy, but I'm this budget, this bronze budget, just kind of appeared out of nowhere for me, and I don't get it. I thought that was our job. Thank you.
Well, just real quick, Charles. Normally, we rely on the staff to go back and do the analysis of the beginning budget, right? The police department knows how much gas they're going to need in a year. That's the number they come up with, right? We don't need to get into that and try to do zero-based budgeting on how many gallons does this car get? What's the efficiency? I mean, that's a little too in the weeds. So that's where a lot of those numbers have come from, is staff taking a hard look at, hey, here's what we see our minimum expenditures. That doesn't mean we have to agree, and it doesn't mean those things can't still be cut. But that's how that gets started. Otherwise, we should have started in January, because
Right.
it would be
Okay.
I
And
know
I
it's
hear that.
left the stall. We can't do that now.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And like I say, I don't want to hold back. I don't want to be a burden in this process, but I feel like I can't help but feel like the cart is leading the horse here. And that's the way it seems to have been going since the get-go. And I'm just reeling from this whole process. So forgive me.
No, there's no dumb questions. You're the new guy here, and that's why we're backing up. And sometimes that introspective is good for us, because we go, I don't know why we do it that way. We've just been doing it that way.
We always start with the staff recommendations, right? That's a starting point always.
Yeah. Doesn't mean we can't change that.
Oh,
but
I understand.
might be hard to back up.
But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. But one of my thoughts was, if we go along that line, and I like the idea of the parking lot, as we said earlier on, then if we're going to do that to the other budgets going forward, we really, out of fairness, should do that to court and to PD as well, and kind of re-examine it from that perspective as well. So, of course, it's not on the agenda for tonight. Don't forget, I skipped over minutes again. Sorry, Rudy. I'll get those before we go.
I was going to say, this is an extraordinary year, right? And it may demand a little extra effort from all of us.
And Charles, I think that's a good point, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to flesh out a very awkward process. Like Sylvia said, you start with the money first, and then you go forward. We're trying to start both of those, and we're floundering around because it's a paradigm shift for us.
Right. I mean, the big problem this year is the uncertainty of revenues. We don't know what's going to happen. So we're going to have to be very flexible. I tend to agree with John that I think it's not as bad as some people are predicting, but who knows for sure.
Well, given what Alfonso said, and there's some interesting nuggets in there, I want to look at those as well, but the items that are before us tonight, maybe with the idea of, sounds like everybody's good with the parking lot idea, that we try to march through some of these items that we have this evening and see if we can park or unpark, essential, non-essential. Charles, like you said, what's the definition we put to those items, and do we hold it up to that light? Does it work? Does it not? I'm open to suggestions. Fidel? Can't hear you, Terry.
He's not responding by Fidel.
Yeah, I need to respond. What I was thinking too is that we're part of the budget process, but the mayor is going to submit a budget as well.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming she's going to look at what we've said, which is largely us vetting what staff said. At least that's how it's worked in the past. And then the council is going to actually determine what the budget is going to be. They're the elected officials who will vote on it, and they will be adding in or subtracting out according to what they feel is the best thing to do. Now, I like your approach, Michael, in that we can let the elected officials have the pleasure of adding in, and that we approach it from a really conservative point of view, and that we don't let things drop off the desktop. That's what this parking lot is for, what this side list is for. As we go through, we put it on there. So this doesn't get lost in the process, so people will know where to go and pick this stuff up and put it back in. That's just a suggestion.
I think you're absolutely right, and we need to remind ourselves that council still has the ability to have those public hearings and add those things back that need to go. That they finance meeting right now in there. Can you mute John? Sylvia, can you mute John? Thank you. But for us, and it's not about hurting anybody's feeling, we're trying to be very subjective about this. Is it essential or is it not? And if it is, great, we keep it in. If it's not, it goes out. And then if those people that have got tossed out want to go to the council and say, will you put this back in? And council does that, fine. But for us to do that evaluation, it just seems that it's about the numbers for us, right? And we put it through the glass of essential versus non-essential. And I don't know what other definition to use for us to march ahead. Otherwise, we're going to stay stuck in this conversation for a long time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Unless the council wants to give us some directive between now and, I don't know, but we don't have that. So we're putting it through the only lens we know. And the one we've always talked about is essential versus non-essential. And but if we're going to be more definitive about that, then we do need to back up, like we said, and look at those other budgets. Police, as you said, John, last week, and court. Although court, there's not much meat on the bone in court.
I don't like just a bare bones minimal plan, right? But you know, you have to start somewhere. That's a fine starting point.
Yeah. And remember, I know we said this last week, I don't mean to be redundant, but as we march through the following year, if the numbers trend up, there's the ability to add back, right? And so we're not saying forever and ever, amen, they're gone. We're just saying we're pumping the brakes for a while, and we're going to see if we can operate on skin and bones, and then add to as the council see fit. I think they're going to do a lot of that next year, working with the numbers. I mean, they have to, right? We passed the budget, they set the budget, and so they're going to spend a lot of time next year and a lot of agendas talking about money. I don't see any other way around that. What we're trying to do is at least give them something to get out of the starting blocks with. All right.
Onward.
Through the fog. All right, well, I know that was a long conversation, but I think it was essential for us to kind of get some of that out. And I think we're aligned on a lot of these items, and that's encouraging.
Michael,
We're on general government expenses.
Michael, may I speak?
Ready?
Basically, council already gave guidance by defining what is essential. It's basically only what is needed for health and safety, period. And then you could always move as council, and as next year comes into play, we can always move from the bronze program to the bronze plus, only as revenues increase. Thank you.
No, I agree completely. But we got to give you something.
Hi, Chairman, could I ask a few questions?
Is that Suzanne?
No, it's the mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor, I can't see you. Okay.
I agree with what Rudy just said, and Sylvia could pull that. There is an actual definition that was adopted formally from council. So if we want to know what does council mean by essential, there is an exact definition that was adopted. One request I had is that before you all adjourn tonight, would y'all review the calendar and make sure that within your calendar, because I have not looked at it, make sure that you've built in, I don't ask for much, but just give me a reasonable amount of time from when you all finish to when I have to post, because it will require a little bit of work between me and Susanna and Sylvia. So whether that's 7 days, 10 days, 10 days would be great, but if it needs to be less, I will absolutely bend to whatever minimum amount of time you all can give me. Next question, I always need to be refreshed on this because I actually don't know what is exact. Are you all helping me create my budget, or are we supposed to be submitting competing budgets? Because my understanding was that budget and finance was supposed to be working with me and helping me submit the mayor's budget. Could Sylvia or Regine or Susanna or the attorney help me understand? Because it feels like we have, I had a resident today compare it to unions, and they said it sure feels like we've got an awful lot of unions all fighting for their pocket of money. I'd really like to do everything possible to make it so that once we get to the council level, that has flushed out as much as possible so that council can make efficient decisions. Because it's going to be a hard year. There's going to be something left on the floor that makes a pocket of residents unhappy.
Well, I can answer your question, Mayor. Nobody said anything about creating two budgets, and we've never done that. So this budget we're going to hand to you, and then in typical fashion, as you've done for the past few years, as other mayors have done, whatever changes you want to make then get made to that budget. We identify those so that the committee has clarity on what we did and what you did, and then that's what goes to council.
Right, but are you all helping me prepare my budget, or are you going to prepare your budget and then I'm going to prepare my budget and then you all are going to have another meeting to dissect the budget it seems like it should be done somewhat in unison, that the committee is helping the mayor submit a budget to council. And in past years, I would oftentimes come to the committee and indicate the things that were a priority or that were of concern to me. And this year, I understand it is just a different landscape. And so I don't think we need to do it the same way, but I'm already seeing, Charles pointed it out, Charles Goyette, for instance, P&E suggesting that we add a fee to trash. Well, that didn't come from staff. Staff didn't research that. Staff didn't recommend that. That came strictly from the committee. I want to make sure that those types of recommendations are actually getting vetted, discussed, and a clear recommendation ideally is coming from both myself and the committee, so that when it gets to council, it's not, well, the committee wants this and the mayor wants something different. And instead it is the mayor, the committees, including budget and finance, have funneled through all of this. And to Charles Goyette's point, budget and finance should be the final stop, where you take all these different committee recommendations and you say, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. We've also spoken with the mayor. This is the budget that we think has the best chance of getting 3 or more votes. That also is what we think is the best compromise of all the different things that were requested this year.
That's what we'll do. That's what we've always done, Rose.
And can you guys help me tackle the subsidy thing? And Michael, this comes up every year. Who are we kidding? There's not 3 votes to get rid of subsidies. So if we're serious about cutting subsidies to residents, let's not dance around it. Committee, you all need to put that out there and vote on it, because I don't believe you have 3 votes at the council level to get rid of any of the subsidies in this current year.
Okay, those are future agenda discussions, and we've not even broken the seal on any of that. And again, my personal feeling is it's about the numbers, and then you guys can decide whether you've got enough votes or not. And if you want to change the budget, so be it. All we can do is analyze the numbers for you, not make political decisions, make financial decisions that are in the best interest of everybody. You said there's going to be some bones on the floor and some people are going to be mad. There's no other way to approach this, right? So I think we're doing a very analytic approach. We're examining. Alfonso did a great examination of the numbers. We're analyzing and looking at what we're doing. We're doing the best we can to bring you a good, solid budget that's pretty well thought through. And then you guys can take it from there. That's what we've done every year. All right, let's get back to it. There's not much on the general government expenses here.
No, so am I on? Okay, so what you see highlighted in yellow, we had not put in the fire and emergency service. So what we have as projected actuals really are projected actuals for the end of this year. And what you see in the green column is FY20 adopted. That was what the council, the budget and finance committee, and everybody recommended and went through. We have cut out a lot, which is why that projected actuals is low. We cut out things like any remaining training and supplies. We cut out community fire planning. We cut out land acquisition, easement acquisition. The business appreciation lunch for $5,000 was cut. The spring fling was cut. The legal defense fund, that was sort of just a little slush pocket. And then this year, the contingency fund was also cut. So going into FY21 proposed, There is some dollars in tuition reimbursement, and that's almost a 50% reduction from last year's budget. There is some contingency, although I've heard the concerns of the committee members on, that's what we have reserved, so you shouldn't put that in contingency. Truly, the two super required expenses in this particular fund, if we were talking about just essential, is fire and emergency and the lease expense.
I noticed that's about a 2.5% increase. You think that's what they're going to hold it to on fire?
Regine? Yes, that's our best estimate.
Okay, because it typically hasn't been that in the past, but we can always amend if we have to.
Sylvia, isn't it a 5-year contract and we just signed it?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's a 5-year contract, so it's not changing.
So that was the step.
I'm sorry, I have her yelling something.
Okay,
So if we were,
that's the step. All right.
if we were to take out tuition reimbursement, we were to take out contingency, and we were to take out training and supplies, that reduces general government to 543, 520.
What training is in this?
This is elected officials training. This is expenses for the annual retreat, any seminars, training classes, etc.
Yeah,
Also-
I think those are probably fairly essential.
They are essential?
Well, if you want to have a well-functioning council. So that's my thoughts.
Here we go.
Mr. Chair, I was curious about what the council retreat, what that would cost. I think that's a useful item to establish, for people to be oriented and also to start establishing relationships. But the other items might be same things for the parking lot on the tuition reimbursement.
Yeah,
You agree with that, Wanda?
I would. I think that's a great idea. And I also would think the contingency fund, that could be if we need it, that could be from the reserves. But it looks like we have used it before in the past. So,
Well, again, you may want to put $1,000 in there so it's a placeholder. And if you're going to do an adjustment later, you can add some funds to it. So, or make it $500 or something to just have a placeholder for that. All right, so we're going to put the tuition reimbursement on the parking lot and the contingency, or do you want to adjust the contingency down to $500? And Wanda, Sylvia, can you get us that definition, council? I've never seen that.
Which one, I'm sorry?
One that Rose said there was a clear definition of essential versus non-essential.
Yes, we'll get that to the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Sylvia about the fire and emergency services and the property lease expense. Those are the other essential items that are left.
Okay. Any other discussion then on general government?
So any money in items for training and supplies of the council?
Do you need $2,500 to have a council retreat?
We had, the council retreat was a TDS and the site was free. We had minimal expense for food. No, it was not $2,500.
Give me a number.
Yeah, well, what would be appropriate?
Depending on their attendance with TML, which would probably be virtual, you could do $1,000 in that line item.
Okay.
Great.
Chairman?
Yes.
It's Melissa.
Melissa?
I think you have to pay for the new council member training. That, I think that's an unreasonable thing to expect a new council member to pay for that when it's sort of required by law. So I think we need to at least put the bucks in for that.
I thought we did.
For the training, not the retreat, just the training that they have to have by law.
Required training for a new council member?
Yeah. So, and you're going to and you might have at least two. So, there are some legal requirements. I just want to make sure you have that in. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
So now they suddenly understand that we're going to be following.
That in over their head. They don't know how to budget. They don't know how to do financial reports. I've done this all my life. I have to live.
Well,
Sorry, Michael.
What is going down?
thank you, Sylvia.
Okay, thank you.
Under expenses, 5,500 advertising / public notices.
What line item are you on?
$200,000. We're on the hot funds.
Okay. So in the hot fund, there was a mislabel on, there was marketing and whatever was in here. That's really the farmer's market of 41,900. We did receive requests, hot fund requests from the various committees. We received a request from CED. We received a request from ArtFest. We received a request from JDRF, and we also received a request from the farmers market. This 260,000 is the marketing campaign. We're not expecting a whole lot of that expense this coming year, which is why you see 50,000 in that line item. It will need to be encumbered since council did approve and selection of a marketing firm, and so now we're in the contract writing phase. So this number will increase at some point, although it won't be spent, but it will be encumbered. Arts Fest, since it was canceled, their initial allocation of 81,000 was reduced drastically to 24,500. The JDRF, they did have a $15,000 expense, and the farmers market will also have a 41,900 expense.
So farmers market's 5556. That's the retail analysis and demographic assessment.
Yes, it's not retail. Yeah, it's not retail analysis.
Okay. Did the JDRF and Central Valley Market, the farmers, did they complete the application packages?
They have submitted their packages, yes.
And you're comfortable that they're administratively complete?
No.
And that they meet the criteria?
No, we have not combed through any one of the applications yet. They've just been received.
Okay, well, several years ago, we went through a big process of developing all the, remember that, committee members, of here's the criteria, and we put together packages, and we said, here's all the things you need to do to get these funds, and everybody needs to do that. And so if they've not done those, I don't know how you can fund these.
Michael?
Wanda?
Hello?
I mean, Regine?
Regine. So we received the packages, SFC and JDRF, they did the application and the event report and all of that.
and have the board of directors and stuff like that. The only thing I found with SFC, they were complete. There's a couple of issues maybe after Tuesday's meeting, but as far as what they sent me up until then was good. JDRF left off the hotel logo, which they're going to resubmit that with the logo. They just left it off on that paperwork. And then for the CED committee and the Arts Commission, they submitted a budget, and Sylvia let them do like a letter, a requesting letter instead of the application. So if you go with that, we received everything. We haven't looked at the details and how to code it and stuff like that. But as far as what they've turned in, they've turned everything in.
Discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and I want to go back to the advertising and the new marketing vendor, and that could we get a briefing on that at some point, because that is over $250,000, and Sylvia indicated there may be more, so perhaps we shouldn't just make a decision on that tonight.
If I may, one more comment.
Reggie?
Related to that. So on this agenda item, I don't think that we're meant to discuss the expenses yet, because y'all did not have the backup for the expenses. I believe on the calendar it shows that we're gonna discuss hot funds again. I think in a couple of meetings. I'm not exactly sure. So I think this meeting was more to talk about the revenue and what we projected for revenue. So I would agree with Terry that y'all haven't seen anything, the packets or anything like that. So I think it would be hard to know what those expenses that are on there are actually.
That meeting is actually scheduled for July 16th. So the discussion tonight was supposed to be on the revenues, because if you guys recall, while we did 25% on the others, we were almost at either 90% or more reduction in the hot tax.
What's the balance in that account?
Yeah, that's a question. Good question.
It's
as of right now, we're at 600,000 plus. 621, I think. I'm not exactly sure. But 600,000 plus.
So we're looking at about well, there's the negative 407. I agree with Terry. I'm not comfortable passing any of these until I can review the material. But there's still would leave $200,000 into. I think that $50,000 from hotel occupancy is probably optimistic. But, as we talked about earlier, that may change as the year goes on, and we can add things back to it.
So that's the question for the committee tonight. This blank that we have here for hotel occupancy tax under revenues that I have highlighted. If we were to do a 90% reduction, then that number is $25,000. If we do an 80% reduction, that number is $50,000.
Your guess is as good as mine, darling. I mean, I think we're just. You got some feedback from the hotel?
We did. He says he has 5% occupancy if he's lucky. He's utility bill wise, we're trying to help him get caught up with about $30,000 in utility bills. He made a $2,000 payment the other day. He has not been able to bring back hardly any of his staff, and he did discuss with the state the back payment of his taxes. They've allowed him to do a short term, he was going to work on a payment plan with them, and he is hoping to get current by the end of the year.
That doesn't sound good.
How much does he owe?
He hasn't paid the last 2 quarters.
So about
Talking about sales tax or utility bills?
His hotel tax.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
So maybe
So
we should,
probably about
maybe,
120, 130,000.
Yeah.
maybe we should start with 25 there instead of 50.
You know, I'm thinking this hotel traffic is going to be down through at least through the end of the year.
Yeah.
And maybe beyond that, you know, given unless there's a vaccine. And so, yeah.
All right. Any other discussion on that then?
Yeah, I have a discussion item.
John?
I'd like to revisit something I have proposed at least once a year for the last 5 years. And that is to retroactively convert the foyer of City Hall into the visitor center and to reclaim the funds that are available from hot funds into the general government account. I believe, I just remember a sentence or two from Sylvia that she had experience doing this type thing, that it is one, legal, appropriate, and that it works, and that we can hopefully add money to our operating budget, to our government, open government, the, what do you call it? General government fund.
Yeah.
Right? At the expense of hot funds. But this is what we're really trying to do, isn't it? We're trying to increase government general government funds. Isn't that kind of important? Then you could spend it for other things. I don't know. So if I were able to task somebody, I would say, Sylvia, can you do this, please? Can you pursue this and find out how much money we could save per year? And can you talk to some of your 5 closest friends on city council and put a bug in their ear?
Okay.
I think this is more than worthwhile. Everybody that comes into City Hall is a visitor to City Hall. And if you hand out maps and you hand out trail guides, you're doing a service.
Okay.
It is a visitor center, and we save money.
Maybe
okay,
between now and the 16th, we can
again.
look at that a little bit more. I don't know that it would create revenue. I think what you're proposing is we save some funds to allocate some space for that. That would then mean a certain percentage of operating costs could go toward hot funds.
A certain amount of hot funds can go to
a different twist to that, right? We could allocate a certain percentage of operations to hot funds if we could allocate that percentage of square footage.
Yes.
There's probably some protocol, and we should probably allocate some funds to allow that to occur, but I don't know that frees up any money. Help me here, Sylvia. Am I on target here?
Yeah, it's the same as using a portion of your house for office space and being able to write that portion off with the IRS. It's under the same general premise. Whatever portion of the City Hall is used as a visitor facilities fund would have operation expense charged against it.
Yeah, I think that's what you're saying, John, right? I mean, if we could
that's part of it.
Percentage of operations.
That's part of it going forward, but there's also an aspect of retroactively saying, hey, you know, we spent $300,000 or whatever the right number is, total cost of City Hall. We spent a tenth of City Hall costs were for that foyer, right, for this by square footage, and we could reclaim that money and say that came from visitor center funds.
Well, we could also maybe remodel a part of that area and allocate some funds for that. Terry?
You have to put a sign up that says visitor center.
John's visitor center.
I like John's idea and what he's proposing. I don't know about the retroactive part because it hasn't been designed or functioning as a visitor center formally. So I would feel uncomfortable about any retroactive application, shift of expenses from the general fund to hot fund for visitor center when we didn't have one functioning yet. But I really like the idea.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a while before that becomes a viable revenue stream again, based on what's going on with our colleague across the way there. That's really terrible. Wish there was something we could do for him. Okay, any other conversation then on the hot funds? All right, backing up to minutes.
Move that we approve.
There's a motion by Fidel. No. Who was that?
John.
Oh, John, thank you.
Second that motion.
Charles seconded by
Charles
Charles
Goyette.
Goyette. Yeah. Discussion? Rudy? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, any
Aye.
nay? Do you need a roll call, Sylvia, on that?
Okay.
Do you need one?
No.
Okay, good. Any changes to the calendar? Yeah.
We're going to have a minor change. Public Works voted the other night to approve the bronze budget, but they were rushed, and so they want to see it again on Tuesday, the 30th. This committee is scheduled to see it on July the 2nd. That would not give us ample opportunity to get you the worksheets. We can have the worksheets out to you on the 1st, but I know you want more than a day to look at them.
Yes.
So it may mean that the July 2nd and the July meeting is combined. We are able, if the committee wants, we can swap out Public Works with the hot funds and allow you guys to review those and have that discussion on the 2nd, if that's what the committee so desires. And then if, from what I heard tonight, you guys want to go back and revisit revenue projections and some of what we saw on the 18th.
I've also, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a desire to go back to court and PD, and because there was some question on some of that. Did I misunderstand the committee on that?
No, that's what I understood as well.
Okay.
So for next week, before we get too further down the road, we can bring back what we saw on the 18th. And then if the committee so desires as well, let you take a look at the hot fund requests that have come in.
And just backing up a little bit, Sylvia, I don't think it's so much municipal as is PD and admin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. We'll just lump those three together. I think we agreed not to dig into the repair. We're just going to allocate those funds to that.
We agreed not to dig into what, I'm sorry?
The repair and replacement.
Oh, yes.
We're just going to go ahead and allocate the funds to that.
Correct. We are to come back before OpenGov has a capital budget module that we're still building. We're going to come back to you at some point toward the latter part of July and have that if the committee so wants to comb through that. But our plan is just to flat what was planned before and perhaps even not make that transfer until everybody's ready to make that transfer.
Right. I think last week we talked about, we usually do that in the end of the second quarter. Ray Jean said usually around the end of the second quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Terry? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. I've been going through the reserve equipment and repair, those sheets, and looking at the cost estimates, and I see that there is the possibility of saving some money there. I'm thinking that a lot of these cost estimates have been carried forward for years as far as what a unit costs, particularly on the electronics. I think that they're less expensive now, and that I think it would be helpful for the committee to do that, to go back through these reserve fund items at some point.
Yeah, as we talked about, that was on our agenda this year, right? We were really going to drill into that, and then the COVID issue came and kind of got us derailed on that. I don't know that we could allocate the time that it would take to go through that and go through all these and still stay on track with our budget, unless you guys want to start meeting twice a week.
I have a comment.
Regine?
About the calendar. So it looks like on July 16th, we have the CED Hot Funds and the Art Fest presentation. But if we do that on July 2nd, we won't have to do that on July 16th. Right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we can push Public Works out.
So on the 2nd, we're going to do the Hot Funds and bring back PD and admin.
Yep.
And that's all we're going to do on the 2nd of July?
Well, drainage and green tax kind of wraps into Public Works, doesn't it?
Yeah, on the 9th will be basically Public Works and everything that it's inclusive of Public Works, to give the committee a more macro level look at that.
So we could just invert those two
Yes.
projects and programs. There can't be much to that. Unless, is there really anything in that at all, Sylvia?
Yes, P&E has met on a number of occasions. They've ranked projects, services and programs that they wanted staff to put a cost to. So we started cost of service sheets. I don't know if this committee has seen any of those. Let me open that up for you. What we did was basically say how much things generally cost, and then we're trying to add a to determine, is there a fee, is there a subsidy, is there, what is it that actually costs? Because we do a lot of sort of back of the envelope. Well, I think it costs this much, and so we went through this exercise with Public Works, and this is just a summary of some of the top items that Planning and Environmental has gone through. And the things that have an asterisk, we already do, but we're doing on a limited basis. So P&E has asked us to come back and say, what would it take for us to bring this back up to pre-COVID levels? So here's an example of what we did in terms of determining what cost is. I know you probably can't see that. Let me get to a bigger number. We took who all is involved in touching that particular program or service, what their salary is, and we broke down their cost per minute. And then we said, how much time do they actually take doing that task, and what does that task actually end up costing the city, including equipment, services, and materials. And so this gives me an opportunity to create an SOP out of this column. It gives me an opportunity to do a review if, for example, Carolyn is spending 30 minutes and she's, at a $117,000 salary rate. Should this number be shifted over to the superintendent who's at an $85,000 salary rate? And those are loaded salaries with benefits all inclusive. And then it also gives me an opportunity to determine how much staff I actually need for a particular division or activity. And just with the bare minimum services that we're doing right now on a limited basis, if you think that staff can do 20, 80 hours you can see that the superintendent is tasked, and one of the maintenance techs is already tasked, and another maintenance tech is getting up there pretty quickly. The water superintendent, we didn't put in meter reading and water testing in here, so I'm going to tell you he's pretty taxed as well. So what happened in this conversation is, obviously there are things that need to fall off, right? If we're not going to add staff, and if we do add staff, what's the supplemental to that staff? Is it a contract? Is it a temporary? Is it a, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And then what you heard Mr. Boyette say, if there's an opportunity for a fee that could augment a revenue, what would that look like? So these are some of the things that we've been kind of hashing out. But yes, there is an inclination to bring back some programs and services that are maybe they weren't deemed essential at one point, but they are essential.
Can you put those numbers back up there again real quick?
Sure.
What of these items are we doing now? Oh, I see, active and on hold. Okay. So if you strip out the on hold, just looking at that number, it doesn't leave you a lot of bandwidth to do projects. Looking at the 2080, the 2420, the 1865, just an eyeball on it, right? I mean, it's packing you close to that number and not giving you some leverage to handle unknown variable.
This was some of the discussion last night with Public Works, and I know we're not discussing that worksheet about the ability to manage projects, and you know, how do we manage that within the organization. And there's no doubt there's some adjustments that need to be made as to what the upper level supervisor is doing, for example, in ditch and right-of-way maintenance. Spending 30 minutes making work determination and planning. Well, is that something we can really shift to the superintendent and shift some of the duties off to techs and or third parties?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a real close look at operations to be able to give the committee good, intimate knowledge of what we're doing.
Yeah, this is a great tool when they talk about projects, and you know, this is a good example of why some things don't get done. And this is, I don't think, analysis I've seen in the past from that department. Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Regina, are you clear on what calendar adjustments we're going to make? Or Suzanne?
Yes.
Whoever. Okay. Hang on, I'm just looking it over, thinking the calendar through. 16th, utility rates, bring back items. We still have quarterly financials in there. So we've got two bring back dates, the 23rd and the 30th. And then Rose was asking about how much time she would get it. We're shooting for the 30th of July to wrap that up and then hand that off to you, Rose. And that would give you 12 days, give or take. So a little shy of 2 weeks to do whatever changes you feel need to be done. Your presentation to council is on the 18th. Looks like there's one public hearing. Okay. Other questions? Oh, did we vote on the minutes? We did. Okay.
Mr. Carmona has his hand up. Here's.
Yes.
Somebody has their hand up? Alfonso?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe it will be until next meeting because I tried to talk since 25 minutes ago, but that's okay. It will be the next meeting. Thank you.
I'm sorry, that was my fault. That was the mute all when Councilmember Ellett was talking to shut that conversation off.
Exactly.
Sorry, Alfonso.
No problem. I think we are working very, very good, and I am happy. So we need to continue in that way. And next week, I will give it to you my feedback. But I am happy. Thank you.
Glad you're feeling better. It is only 7:30, so if we have another few minutes, if anybody wants to cover anything, I'm good with wrapping up early. I'm sure staff would be happy to go home.
Before 11.
Mr. Chairman, Michael.
Yes.
Maybe I will send to the members of the committee some of the numbers that I was doing, and in that way they will have a better idea. Now they will change because today they were doing other changes, but until this morning from the other committees, I was taking that information, and this is that I have. Perhaps I have two files, and one is so large, but I will send one that is one abstract. And if somebody wants to talk, we can continue talking in that way. But I will send that files to each member. I will send the abstract. And if somebody wants to go with the big one, I will send the big one.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to look at that before we talk about it.
We can give you a Dropbox link, Alfonso, if you want to put it in the Dropbox so that everybody can get access to the Dropbox.
Yeah, but this is a lot of charts. All of that is in Excel. They are in Excel. So I can put that in any box, but that has to be comparable to my Excel.
Oh, no, yes. Dropbox is just a place where you upload it and then they can go in and get it.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Me. Hello? Can you hear me?
Sasha.
Who do we have there?
That's Sasha.
Hi, this is Sasha. Thank you for all your hard work. I'm the chair of the Arts Commission, and just because I haven't done this before, and also because we're doing it virtually, I wanted to know if you have any expectations for how the hot funds, whether any kind of presentation needs to be made to you next week about the hot funds, or simply the numbers.
I'm sorry, I can't hear her, so I don't know what are we talking about.
She's asking what the expectation for the hot fund presentation is because she's new to the chair of the Arts Commission.
Yeah, if any.
You're welcome to attend that meeting and during the presentation and have a conversation with the committee.
Okay.
That's when we'll dig into it. Is that your question? I'm unclear.
My question was mainly, do you have any expectations of us in that regard specifically, other than providing the numbers?
If we have any expectation other than her providing the numbers.
Yeah, I would encourage you to have backup to those numbers, where they came from and what they're about.
Oh, of course. Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome, and welcome aboard.
Thanks.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Belanca.
I move that we adjourn.
All right, and Charles Young, was that you seconding?
I'll second, yes.
All in favor, say good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Staff, thank you so much.